Hi, I'm Jason Bellamy, coming to you from Next 2017, where just a little while ago we finished the opening event. We're in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm joined by the lovely Adrianne Haslet. Adrianne, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's wonderful to be here.
So Adrianne was our surprise keynote speaker, and if her name doesn't mean anything to you, she's a survivor of the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings. Physical therapy had a tremendous impact on your life.
Huge.
You shared that today. There were as many tears in the audience as coming from you and
yes,
sharing your story.
I got teary-eyed just being surrounded by so many people that are involved with physical therapy. I just am so grateful for everyone. I wanted to just hug them all and show them my appreciation. It made me get teary-eyed.
Yeah, there's a lot of love in the room. We're going to kind of go through your story and some of the things you talked about, but I just want to get some of the details out of the way for people who don't know it.
Thank you.
So April 15, 2013, you're a spectator of the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
You actually brushed shoulders at some point with one of the bombers.
I did.
The explosions happen. You lose your leg below the left knee, basically.
Yep.
And you go to the hospital that night, make a goodbye call to your parents, totally thinking you're not going to survive.
I didn't.
So that's the sort of the incident, right? At some point you come out of that, you realize you're going to survive this, but as you told me, we've talked privately, you talked tonight, you thought the quality of your life was going to be a zero. So take me back to that point. I mean, what were your images of what life was going to be like for you?
Gosh, you know, it was impossibly hard. Being a professional ballroom dancer, my foot was my craft, my foot was my tool, my body was my tool, and that was completely taken away from me. And in such a horrific way. I thought my life and quality of life would be a zero. I thought not owning a television, still don't own a television. I thought that I would have to buy a television, eat Cheetos, and that was going to be my life. I had no idea what a prosthetic was, how to say the word prosthetic, what PTs really did. I hadn't been injured before, and I thought my quality of life would be a nothing. It was a very low point.
Yeah. So we're going to get to the physical therapy part later, but I want to talk about two experiences you had with doctors, both positive and negative, before you get to your physical therapist.
Yeah.
Tell me about the positive one first.
Yes, of course. My doctor, I could go on for hours, so I'll cut the Cliff Notes important version. And, you know, my surgeon is my Superman, Dr. Kalish at Boston Medical Center, and he's incredible. And he looked at me when I told him that my quality of life would be a zero, and I was really broken and beaten down and stapled back together, and my family was there, and I was crying in the room. And I said, you know, my quality of life is going to be a zero. And he looked at me and he said, Adrianne, I promise you your life will never be the same, but I also promise you that it doesn't have to be bad. And that was incredible to me. And it gave me the power to choose what life I wanted to have and have my circle of people around me encourage that path. And I just thank him so much for that. It was so empowering to hear him say, you know what, it may not be the same, but it doesn't have to be bad. So my new normal, since I don't believe in the word recovered, and I think the end is just a font at the end of a Disney movie, new normal is not so bad, thanks to PT and to him and to believing in me and saying that so early on that I could see that.
So that was early reinforcement, and then relatively early on, to kind of jump ahead in your story, you had this interview with Anderson Cooper in which a few things happened. He asked you if you're going to dance again, and you sort of, as you said, gaze into his beautiful blue eyes, and you say yes.
Yeah.
He asked about maybe running a marathon someday. You say sure, you would do that. And after that is when you have a bad doctor experience. And tell me about that one.
I did. He, the bad doctor, I don't remember his name because meds. And he walked into my room later on that evening after I had that interview with Anderson, and he said to me, you know, I've been here, and I've been here for over 20 years, and I've never seen an amputee dancer, and I saw your interview, and you shouldn't have hope. And I was like, what the foxtrot are you saying to me? But I didn't say that then because I was broken and beaten down and crying and stapled back together, and part of me was still evidence. You know, it was just horrific. And then he went on to say that if, you know, your chances are 1 in a million. And I said to him, coming from somewhere deep inside, even though I didn't have hope at that point, I said, if my chances are 1 in a million, I'll be that one. But it was devastating, and I believed him for a while, definitely.
One of the things, and especially thinking about the physical therapy audience that's likely to watch this video, right, is there were times, and that was one of them, where you basically told people that you believed in something that you really didn't believe in yet.
Yes.
Going back to the good doctor again, that was a doctor that basically, you know, asked you to promise him to tell him when you run the marathon because he was going to be there. asked you to promise him that you would tell him when you were going to dance because he was going to be there. And you promised, but you said you didn't believe. How long till you started to actually believe you could?
It's a great question. So yes, I definitely said, of course I'll do that, because I wanted to do that for Dr. Kayla. She'd done so much for myself and my family, but I'd say it was probably once I got into physical therapy and once I learned how this prosthetic thing attaches to my body and how I'm supposed to balance on something that I don't even feel that's underneath me, and to trust that feeling that I don't have, but to trust in the knowledge of my physical therapist. Once I started taking my first unassisted steps, which was, I have it on video, it's on July 2nd of 2014, or 2013, just months later. Yeah. And as soon as I took those first initial steps, I was like, all right, you know what? If I can walk, I can dance.
But did you really believe that?
For a fleeting moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would be lying if I said I believed it in all of me. Because there's all of this going on.
And so the other thing I remember you telling me that you filmed was when you took your first dance step. And so take me through that. Yeah, that was an incredible moment. It was more mind over matter at that point. I was walking fairly stable and unassisted. So I knew that if I was walking, I could dance, but I couldn't even take a first dance move because I didn't want to physically feel my limitations. And so I was in my kitchen and I thought, this darn box step that I taught for decades to my students, that they would be able to pick it up, and whether they were, a construction worker, or a football player, or they said they had 2 left feet. I always like to say, I don't have any, so you can't have your excuse. But I thought, I'd always told them never to give up. And I just stood there and I stepped forward, side together, back, side together, burst out crying, and hit the floor. And that was my first one. And I was crying out of happiness, sadness, defeat, anger, you name it, all the feels. So I want to talk about one more thing, athletic, for a second, and that is how you became a runner.
Yeah.
You were a spectator when this thing happened. You were not out on the course.
No.
You weren't even really there to watch the racers. You were shopping.
I was shopping because nobody else was shopping because the stores were empty because everyone was watching these people go 26.2 for a free banana and passing out and recovering for like weeks. And I thought that was crazy. Why would you do that? It doesn't involve ostrich feathers or dance shoes or spray tan. Like, it just seemed nuts. And
so tell the story of how you get into running.
So I got a running blade clearly to do the jive and swing dancing faster, but I quickly realized that would get tangled into my partner's feet, and so it sat in the back of my closet. I was about to donate it to a fund that recycles legs and
Limbs for Life. Yeah.
Limbs for Life, yeah, and I sit on their board too, and now and I was going to recycle it, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to give this thing a try. That way I can say, I tried it, I ran around the block. I'd never run around the block before. I always used to say, if I'm running, you should be running too. There's a very good reason why. And I went out for a run. I quickly realized that it was way harder than I thought. In order for that blade to compress, it has, to be longer. And so you trip over yourself. I was wearing a helmet. And I ran around the block, and I thought, you know what, this is a challenge, and a challenge I'm willing to accept. So I'm sorry that Limbs for Life didn't get that blade, but I kept on running, and one day I woke up, and I was like, I feel like going for a run. And I thought, what am I thinking? Like, what is going on? And then I got faster and faster and further, and I tracked it. I was up to 10 miles, and I thought, if I can do 10, I can do 26.2. And that's how I declared that I would do the Boston Marathon in 2016. So that, which is crazy.
Yeah, and that was 2016. And to me, one of the most poignant parts of your story is, you decide to do this. You haven't been a runner all your life. You're obviously coming back from this major injury. Mm-hmm. You're doing this in Boston. You're doing this where this happened. You have name recognition. You have people who are expecting you to do this. And it's 4:30 a.m. on the morning of the Boston Marathon, and you feel how?
I feel terrified. Terrified because of all those reasons you're saying. People are watching. I was recognized, so people were saying, I'll be at this mile, I'll be at that mile, and I'm thinking, what if I don't make it to that person? Like, what if I disappoint people by not finishing, which is crazy because it's a marathon, and even sometimes elites don't finish because you never know what could happen out there. But my gosh, I put so much pressure on myself, and I just felt terrified, and I looked at one of my teammates, or my team that had gathered there, and And I just said, I don't know, guys. Like, I'm scared. I started to tear up, and one of my teammates looked at me and he said, Adrianne, what will get you to that finish line is nothing compared to what got you to the start line. And I just started crying, and we got on the buses, and you on the bus forever thinking, I have to run home. And I crossed the start line, and I thought, mission accomplished. Like, whatever happens from here happens. And I'm so happy that I crossed the finish line, of course. But I came in last, and as a recovering perfectionist, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. So if I would have talked to you on April 14th or the morning of April 15th, 2013, and I would have asked you, what are words you would use to describe yourself? I have to think dancer would have come pretty close to the front.
Absolutely.
And so what, through this experience of having dance being part of your identity, losing that as part of your identity, and starting to get that back, what has that been like, and how would you describe yourself now?
Gosh, I would absolutely say dancer, number one, before, and I'm a dancer again, and I love being able to say that, and it's thanks to so many people that have really helped me along the way. I'd say I describe myself now as a dancer and a runner, it's crazy, and an adventurer, and someone who looks a challenge in the eye and says, I want to give this my all. I want to try it, and I want to prove to others that have sat in their hospital beds not knowing anything about the future. It makes me tear up just thinking about it because I was so there, and I still sit bedside with people who are going through the horrific experience of limb loss and other injuries, and I would say that it's so tough, and I would say that I'm here to inspire others so they know how that they can do it too, that they can go through it. I'm like reliving the moments in my brain as I talk. They can go through it too, and they can come out the other end, and that they're just like Dr. Kalish's words. It may not ever be the same, but it doesn't have to be bad. You can have bad moments. You can throw your leg across the room and ask your service dog to retrieve it. You can do all the things you need to do to get by, but it doesn't have. Not every day has to be bad.
And by the way, let's stop there. What's your service dog's name?
Fred Astaire. He couldn't make it right here right now, but he's around the corner.
So a tribute to dance. So you let's get to the physical therapy part,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You said you had no experience. As a dancer, a very physical, rigorous activity. You had zero experience with physical therapy before this happened.
No, I had zero.
And so take me through that.
So I was in the hospital and then was released into inpatient rehabilitation at Spalding Rehab here in Boston. And I met my PT, Diana, for the first time, and she was explaining to me what a physical therapist was. I thought it was like a therapist that would help me work through the heart and soul of it all, which I also found one of those. And I thought, oh, this is great. Like, she's going to help me figure out how this thing's going to attach to my leg and how we're going to do this and how I'm going to dance again. And she said, I saw your interview with Anderson Cooper and you want to run and dance. And she stuck with those goals. And she continued to tell me, in the tough love ways and when I needed to hear it, change your sweatpants. It's been 3 days. Don't make me bedazzle your wheelchair to make you feel better. Like, we got this. We have a goal and we're gonna achieve it. And there were times when she would look at me and she'd say, I need you to do this and this move. And I thought, I don't even know what that is. Like, what is a plank? Like, I don't even know what that is. I'm a dancer. I just dance. It was comical. So she taught me all about PT and how to work out and keep your core strong for balance and all of that.
That's one of the things I want to talk about.
It was wonderful.
That, you talked about, you have this, you're missing limb. And so
Yeah.
the natural thing is to go, like, that's my problem. I need to walk. It's leg related.
Yeah.
And you said there was that initial confusion of why are we working on core strength? And
Yes.
how did she gain confidence in you about what you were doing?
She told me that one day I might dance with Derek Huff, which helped because Derek Huff, and that I needed to have core strength to run the marathon. I needed to have core strength to do stairs. I needed to have core strength to stand up straight. And I needed to have core strength if I wanted to keep my posture, which was in my brain from all my coaches over the decades. And she gained my confidence through telling me, now we're going to do this because this is going to be your end result, and these are your mediums that get you there.
And so you said too, like you think about that still, not just dancing, but doing simple things like, emptying the dishwasher and stuff like that. You're sort of going through those physical therapy routines in your head, right?
Absolutely. Physical therapy is not just in the time when you're actually there with your physical therapist. I am thinking about it constantly in my everyday practice, just like you said, and in everyday life, and just making sure that I'm keeping it strong. There was a time when I couldn't wear my leg after the marathon. My leg was a little angry I did that. So I had to think back to that physical therapy again. How am I going to maneuver around my life without my leg, and how am I going to keep those muscles strong while I'm not wearing it? And it is a huge trust thing. I mean, you're getting in there with your physical therapist, and she was and is an amazing human.
So the last thing I want to talk about is you really talked in your keynote tonight about the Better Together theme, which is APTAs, and you basically said like, oh yeah, I totally identify with that.
Yes.
And so, talk about the collaboration of all the people on your healthcare team and what that meant to you.
Yeah, it meant the world to me, and I completely echo the better together. We're all better together, and we learn off each other. And from my experience, my PT spoke with, on a daily basis, spoke with my prosthetist, Brian, and spoke with my Superman surgeon, Dr. Kalish, spoke with my mental health therapist, and spoke with everyone, so that they knew, oh gosh, she has a blister or a slight infection or a potential infection, or she fell because I hopped because I was not behaving my physical therapist, and I, she has this, and so I didn't need to explain for the first half hour what was going on to every single one of those doctors, and B, in no particular order, it made me feel like I had an entire team, better together, entire team that was there cheering for me, knowledgeable. And when I laid my head in the pillow at night, I had a whole list of issues that I was trying to deal with, but I knew that part was being taken care of, that team was not trying to make decisions based on one person. It was based on my goals, and every single one of them knew what those were and worked tirelessly to achieve them, and that helped my family as well, and my circle, and everyone around me.
So speaking of family, that theme's going to come up in something we're going to play just a second, so don't go. You were very kind enough to work with us on a video, which we're about to play for the first time online. It played today. That was the first time people saw it. We're going to put it here at the end of the video here in just a moment, and then we'll independently post that to Facebook and YouTube later on. We really encourage you to find that and share that. We're very proud to work with you on that. Thank you, Adrianne.
It was a wonderful video. Thank you for putting it together. It was an awesome time filming it, and I hope it helps others to have a little hope and inspire PTs everywhere as well.
All right, so she's Adrianne Haslet. We're grateful to have her as the 2017 next keynote. I'm Jason Bellamy. We're going to have programming for you tomorrow, but for now, I leave you with this video starring Adrianne Haslet.
When the explosions happened and my leg was gone, my biggest thing was, number one, staying alive. I mean, I really did think that was it for me. I thought that my quality of life would be a zero. Mustering up the gut to be able to actually do it and feel my limitations was so tough. It was more mental than physical. My physical therapist completely understood that and knew that I needed the mental capacity to be able to do it, and she just kept my eye on the prize. Physical therapy means everything to me. My physical therapist taught me how to walk again, and that taught my family and people around me that I was physically able to do anything that I put my mind to.